My name is Dawn Oparah, and I have a unique experience. And I want to talk about this workshop, and then I want you all to introduce yourselves, and I'll tell you how I want you to introduce yourselves. This whole workshop is about living in two cultures, straddling between two cultures. You know, your parents may have been born one place, and you're living and growing up here, or you might have been born somewhere else, and now you're growing up here. So it's understanding the cultural norms of your family, and also the cultural norms of what we call the host country, the host culture, which would be the United States of America. And sometimes they clash. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about that. And that's what this whole workshop is about, is how do you straddle between two cultures and try to do well and be a healthy family. Come on in. Good. We're just doing some basic introductions and sharing what this workshop is about. And it's really straddling between two cultures. My name is Dawn Oparah. I am born in the United States, spent most of my life here, but when I got married, I married a man from Nigeria. And we've been married for almost 40 years. But we had to navigate a lot in terms of, because two of my children were born in Nigeria, and the rest of my children were born in this country.
Is this a workshop for two cultures?
Yes, it is. Come on in. This is straddling between two cultures.
This is the one.
This is it. Thank you so much for being here. I was just introducing myself, and I'm going to have you all introduce yourselves in just a few minutes. And I was sharing my experience is that I am a United States citizen, but I married a man from Nigeria, lived in Nigeria, been married for almost 40 years, and we've raised 5 children, we just adopted a young man from Nigeria to be our son. His mother died, so he's new to our family. But we have 4 other children of our own, and they've had to live between two cultures because the Nigerian culture is very important, as is their American culture. So that's what I bring to this. Also, I wrote a book once about a few years ago about helping young people learn to live with diversity. So that's where I come from. And so we're going to talk about stuff that has to do with what it means to live between those two cultures. And this is a workshop, so this isn't a sit and get where I'm going to talk to you and at you. So it means you all have to participate and share your own experiences. And that's the way I would like you all to introduce yourselves, is to say who you are and what is your family dynamic. Where did you come from? Where, if you have children, where are those children from? So what is that dynamic in your family? And that would be helpful so we know kind of what that experience is. Who would like to start?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
My name is Sal Benigno. I come from a background of Italian families. I'm first generation. I was born in this country and lived my early life in New York City. And I met my wife Adele via divine providence that we met. And Adele is from a family from Cuba, and came to the United States in the early 1970s, I believe 1970, and we met in 71. And we got married in 1975, and shortly after moved to Miami, where Adele's family is. Now, but the one that you wanted to be close to, which was her mother and her brother. And all my life, interesting thing is when I was brought up, the first language that I ever spoke was Italian. But in those days, there was a different philosophy in the schools and in culture at large. And the philosophy at that time was to take off the old culture and put on the new culture. So actually
call
today,
assimilation, yeah.
right, and which is entirely different than today. So therefore, I was completely Americanized. My language was English and everything, and the only exposure that I had to Spanish was a little bit that I got in a college, which was equivalent to Spanish 101. You know, so
And
we
walks
moved
into your life as Adele.
and walks into my life as Adele, and I know it was
Wait until you hear my part.
and so we moved to Miami now. Well, first of all, Adele came over, and she didn't know that much English, and we met in the university. And Adele had to study all of the course materials at that time, which were written in English, and so she had to learn English as she went in order to understand her course materials and so forth. So she was struggling, trying to cope with and take on the culture that she encountered here. But when we moved to Miami, there was a reverse. I had like a culture shock because so many people there spoke either only Spanish, or wherever you went, you know, you went shopping or anything, if you tried to talk in English first, the response was in Spanish. And I was a physical therapist, and I did home care services, and most of the people that I went to see in home care were people that spoke Spanish only, so I was challenged to have to express my therapy and so forth, and anatomy in Spanish and so forth. And so we both had the experience of having to take on the other and live together. Of course, I was exposed to her family, and because we moved nearer to theirs and further away from my own, which were folk in the Northeast.
Okay, that's enough. Because otherwise it'll take the whole time. But the only thing I want to say about, to complement what he said, first of all, I did come in 1970. I did not know any English, and I had to assimilate real quickly, very, very quickly. I have an aunt and uncle that I went to live with, and the children who had left way before me spoke no Spanish. So it was hard for me at the beginning because you watching television and what is it? They were bothered by my questioning. But I quickly found my way into college, and the reason I met Sal is because I thought he spoke Spanish. I said to him, we both work. We went to school at night, the first part of it anyway. And I thought his name was not Benigno, but Menendez. That's what I heard when the teacher called out. So I asked him, and he said, I said, do you speak Spanish? Because I have no one to speak to in school. And he said, no, but I buy your cup of coffee. And we've been 45 years, so, okay. So anyway, it went that way. I quickly had to assimilate. And no, I did not miss my culture or anything like that, because I was running away from something very difficult in my country. So when we moved, my father happened to die within 5 years of us being here. And it was my mom, my brother, and him in Miami. So he worked for the Veterans Hospital. So I said, let's ask for a transfer. Do you mind? His parents were gone already. And he says, no, I thought it was going to happen 2 years, who knows when, 2 weeks, he gets the transfer. It was like, boom. And as much as it was a shock for him, it was also a shock for me, because the culture that I found in Miami was different than what I experienced in my own country. And plus, I already been in New York 10 years. And so but I managed better than him, of course, because I knew both language, well, 1.5. And then the reason was first of all, in New York City, we were living in an apartment. We had our daughter, and I didn't want my daughter to be raised in an apartment. And it would be easier to find a home, a cheaper home in Miami. In those days, Miami is not what it is today.
Well, I appreciate you sharing this, and you have at least one child?
No, we have two.
You have
Daughter,
two?
a
Yes.
daughter and a
Son.
son, and then now they're married and they have children. And to answer your question, no, they don't speak Spanish very well. My daughter does now, because she's a high school counselor. She married in terms a boy that is Greek descent, third generation American, so they don't speak any Spanish. What was happening was that my mom was at home with us. She would take care of the kids while we went to work. And Sal would be there, she'd be here, and I'm in the center translating. And one day I said, no, let them say whatever they want to each other, I don't care. But she was able to pick up here and there, And so the children understand Spanish, especially my son, he's very bad at it. Again, he marries now. So it gets lost. Now, the food didn't get lost, the music didn't get lost, the language.
And we're going to talk about that, what it means having young people, because that's important. And maybe you will be able to share with us some of your stories of what happened with your children while raising them and trying to share your culture while living in a host culture. So thank you very much, Adele and Sel,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, over here.
Hello, everybody. I'm
Yes.
Enos Woodruff. I'm a German citizen. I'm not American. I lived here for now over 26 years. And I have a daughter who's 24. And she speaks German and English.
And was she raised here?
She was raised here. She was
Okay.
born and raised here in the United States.
And that'll be interesting to see how you were able to manage to keep your German culture and the language alive in your family, because sometimes that doesn't happen, or people have they hear the language, but they won't speak it.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
Yes.
okay. You're going to be here, or are you going to be in and out?
In and out.
Okay. You can still introduce yourself.
I'm Carrie Spain. Both my parents were born here in the United States. I'm third generation American. My mom's family is from Germany.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Tom Gautreaux. I grew up, was born in South Louisiana, grew up 75 miles south of New Orleans, so I am a Cajun. I had to learn how to say this, that, those, the, them, and ask, or my speech teacher in college threatened to flunk me if I couldn't get rid of
You
the
would say
D.
this, that.
Them, those, and acts. It's interesting because my great-grandmother spoke no English. And when she spoke to us, my dad would scold her because he didn't learn any English until he got into the first grade. And my dad's one of 10 kids. And so he thought that, no, they don't need to speak French, they need to learn English. So my entire generation lost the French language. Now they're trying to bring it back now with little kids in school, but it's
That was very true, because that assimilation that was very prevalent in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was forget whatever your language is. If you want to fit in, if you want to get ahead, you got to learn, and people change even the spellings of their names just to be able to assimilate, and that's very different. Okay.
Hello, first. My name's Ethan Brown. My mom and my dad was born in Nigeria. My mom was born here, but she is of Nigerian descent. And I do not speak Nigerian, I speak English.
Not that there is a Nigerian language that's called Nigerian anyway.
Yeah.
What tribal group is your family from?
We're from Ibibio and we speak Calabar.
Okay.
do you know any Calabar?
A little bit.
A little bit. My new friend.
Do you understand it more when people speak that language?
Well, I've been hearing my mom and my dad speak it since I was born.
So you understand more than you speak, actually.
Yes.
You know why
Good,
they do
awesome.
that?
Well, I know
It's the same reason my parents, because they could speak what we wouldn't know. Okay, we picked up some words.
I think he thinks so. Come and eat. Go get this. Good morning.
Especially when you travel back and you meet
Yes.
relatives. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Young, and this is my kids. I have three of them. I was born here, like he said, and my husband was born in Nigeria. So I've been in the States, for about 22, 23 years. I've had the luxury of growing up in both cultures. So I was born here, my parents went back to Nigeria, so they took me back with them. So I ended up, my primary stage was in Nigeria. So my primary education was in Nigeria, my high school education was in Nigeria. And when I finished high school is when I came in here. So I started college here, I went to University of Troy in Alabama. And what's interesting is when I first came, at this school, not now that you have, they've since had lottery, visa lottery, so you've had a lot of immigrants have come in since 1994 up until now. So when I went to school, I was literally one of only 2 African students. And so for me, Nigeria, the normal language in Nigeria is English, but we have over 500 dialects. And a dialect is not a language, it's just, I mean, you can have 3 different people from the same place and we don't speak the same thing. We speak a different language, however, a different dialect, but you can understand the English.
Yeah, but 250 different distinct languages, and then within those languages, there are lots of dialects.
So, very different.
Wow.
So at school, I went through school without having anyone that I could communicate with, so pretty much I kind of sort of lost some of the things that I learned, so I was speaking mostly English. Now, when I got married to my husband, I grew up in a different state in Nigeria, and my husband grew up in a different state because my mom is from a different ethnic group, and my dad is from a different ethnic group. So I spoke my mom's dialect. My husband is from a different ethnic group, so they speak a different language too. So even though I was married, I could understand some things, not everything that I understood, because a bag could be called something else in one dialect and called something else in a different dialect. So I couldn't really like teach my kids while now I got married, I've had children, now I can't really teach them the language because it's not everything that I know. So I know some things, my husband knows some things, and he'll be talking, I'll be like, go back, explain that again, what does that mean? That's how that's my background. And so my children, the only thing they can hear are the common things that we say, like good morning, whatever, things like that. Those are the things that they understand. Those are the things that is not so different between my husband's exposure and my exposure. So it's been a challenge. It's no longer a challenge in terms of how do we handle some of the discussions we have at home. But the challenge now is I tend to be a little bit, because I've been raised here and I've been raised in Nigeria, I understand both cultures. My husband doesn't understand American culture one bit. He's not even trying to understand. So my children are a little bit stuck in the middle because there's certain things that they would do and I would understand, and there's certain things that, okay, you still want to instill that Nigerian culture in them. One of our biggest things is education, right? And one of our biggest things, and in America, everything is more like, how do you raise a kid to be empathetic? How do you raise a kid to have social and emotional intelligence? How do you raise a kid to just be okay? See, Nigeria, we don't care about all that. So that is my challenge right now, what we're dealing with at home. But I thought, let's come in here, let's see what you have to offer.
All right, okay, thank you. You want to add anything?
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm interested with such a diversity of cultures and ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first exposure to Catholicism? How was it
Oh, birth. So Nigeria is probably 60% Christians. And when you go to the south of Nigeria, southeast is mostly Catholic. So maybe we're 80% Catholics in the southeast. Because the missionaries, when they came mostly to the south, which were by the coast. So when the missionaries came, they came right close to where we are. So 80% of our churches back home are Catholic, so we're all Catholics by birth. And I went to a Catholic boarding school, everything Catholic. Primary school, nursery school, secondary school was all Catholic. And my husband went to seminary school.
That's the same. That was the same thing. My husband was born Catholic.
Yeah. I didn't know there was another religion on the planet until I went to high school.
In fact, they even called the counties parishes. So
the oil industry brought in non-Catholics.
Yes.
Other than until then, that's all I knew was.
Oh, and I forgot to add, my dad is at home, and it is so interesting because when he's speaking to them, now my dad is a college graduate and he has a master's degree, but when he's talking to them, He's talking to them in African, and they do not understand what he's saying. So it is a hot mess.
Young gentleman, what's your name? Ryan? Okay. Do you have anything that you want to add? Okay, how old are you?
You did I want to say no?
I'm 10.
10. Well, we're going to ask some questions and we'll get to there. Okay. Thank you for just sharing your name, Brian. Yes.
Hi, my name is Michelle Martinez. I'm 16 years old. I'm first generation, and both of my parents are from Mexico. Since I was little, I was able to be taken back and forth to Mexico and then back to the U.S. That went on for 5 years. So since I was born, they took me to Mexico, and then I came back, and then went back, and then came back. So that happened like 3 times a year. I'd go back and then come back. I'd go over there and come back. And then I started school, so I couldn't go as often. So I'd only go during the summer, and it helped me a lot because.
You speak Spanish?
Yeah, I speak Spanish and English.
We can tell you speak English very well.
When I went to school, I didn't know any English, and my first day, I started crying because I couldn't talk to anybody. And my mom was just laughing. She was like, "It's okay, it'll get better." And then by the second day, she said I came back talking English, or just speaking like basic words of English. She said that I picked up fast, and
Do your parents speak English now?
yeah, they do. It's not very like, it's broken English kind of. My dad is broken English, my mom can speak it okay. My grandparents are probably the only, my granddad can speak English, my grandma, she's attempting with the little kids, they're in elementary school, and she's been trying to, but since, the Spanish got lost for them. So they know more English than they know Spanish. So it's a lot difficult for her to learn it. And since we're not at home a lot, we can't help her.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Daisy Gonzalez. I am 17 years old. I'm first generation. Both my parents are from Mexico. I learned English very well since kindergarten. I speak both languages very well. Both my brothers do as well. My parents don't speak English that much, but they understand it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Hi, my name is Christina Salazar. She's my cousin. And my parents were born in Mexico as well. I speak Spanish. And I really don't have that much history because I was born here and I haven't been to Mexico. But I am planning to go next year maybe. And it's pretty much it.
Lorraine, were you going to introduce yourself?
I'm Lorraine Miller, and I'm interested because we have a lot of cultures here at this church. I just wanted to see what people had to say. Learn myself.
And just in this room, we have Mexico, Nigeria, you have a French background, you have a German background, you're from Germany, Italy, and Cuba. So certainly a mix. And well, I thank you all for introducing yourself because it helps me shape what I'll say next. Because I have a plan. I didn't know if we were going to have young people and parents here, so I want to make sure I'm talking to both audiences. Young people, because there are some challenges when you're living in a culture and your family's from a different culture, because there's some influences that the host culture has on you. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What are some influences that living in America has on you that may not have been the same way if you were in Mexico or in Nigeria? Think about that. I want to show you a video just to watch. I have several of them, and I'll decide how if I do this right. Hope that comes up.
You need the lights to.
Sure, it comes up. came up before. Oh, there it is. It just takes a minute. Okay. But before, while we get to that, can you hear that?
Yeah, it opened more than once.
Am I in the way?
No, you're fine.
Oh, I think this is. Oh my gosh. Can you all hear that? I don't know.
It's funny, I feel like every day can be a culture clash in our household. I was just with my family this weekend, and it was funny. My mom was like, "I'm not going to do it that way. That way's American. You're trying to force me to do it that way." And I was like, "I don't want to do it that way. This is the way we do it." And after I read my book, I have to say a lot of things have aired out because largely the book is tired. What the book covers, part of what it covers, is how I kind of grew up in this American culture. My parents grew up in a different country and had no idea what we were going through. I mean, they just didn't even. I still remember my mom, I saw something on TV, she's like, "There aren't drugs in your school, are there?" I mean, we never had anything like that. You know, it was just always this constant, you know, we're operating on two different planes. And for them, it's been a learning experience on both sides. It's been such an extreme learning experience. And my book allows me to tell my side of, hey, Dad, when you were telling me to do this the whole time, this is what I was going through. And it hasn't allowed my parents to ever say their side. It's very much from my perspective. And that's all I know. And what's just dumbfounds me about my parents is I almost expected like a field trip, like, do you understand I did this and this and this? And do you understand? And I did it a little bit with them, but it's just so rare to know how different their experience was. And what I'm getting after writing my book and I had to have my parents read it and say, look, this is what's going out. You know, you can be mad at me, we can talk about it,